Chapter 1 Liora Pov. Crack. A sharp cry escaped my lips as I darted in front of my brother, just in time to shield him from the lashing that had been aimed at him. That kid just disrespected the alpha of your sector's pack. Step aside. One of the pack warriors stood there gripping a thick, coiled whip, his eyes flicking from me to where my brother cowered behind me. He's only 6. He didn't mean to. My words were cut short by another loud snap, and a searing pain flared across my cheek. My hand flew up instinctively, and when I pulled it back, my fingertips were streaked with blood. My face was bleeding. You want this handled in public? Because that's exactly where this is heading if you don't move aside. Human. I didn't want another punishment. The last one had been nearly 2 months ago, and I'd barely recovered. My back was already a mess of scars. He wasn't being disrespectful. He was just playing. He's a little kid. Do you really want to sink that low? Another brutal crack silenced me as the whip lashed my arm. I barely had time to register the pain before the Lycan's fist slammed into my jaw. I staggered back, spitting blood from my mouth as I bowed my head in submission. It was the only way to keep my brother safe. I felt his tiny hands clutching at the hem of my shirt, trembling with fear. To the courtyard, the command snapped through the air, making my head jerk up in alarm. Go home. Lock the doors and stay with Mom, I whispered to my brother. Before I could even finish, 2 wolves grabbed me by the arms and started dragging me away. I looked over my shoulder, just long enough to see Rhett running back toward our house in the human district. Relief washed over me for a moment. He was safe, but it didn't last. I was hauled through town, people stopping to stare as I was dragged up onto the stage in the center of the courtyard. My wrists were strapped to a post, and a thick strip of leather was shoved into my mouth to bite down on. Humans were always forced to watch these public floggings. It didn't matter if you were the one being punished or not. It was traumatizing either way. Once the Lycans decided the crowd was big enough, the Punisher unsheathed his claws and shredded my shirt, revealing my already scarred back to the gathering. A few gasps echoed through the crowd. Some recognized me. Then came the first lash. By the 20th strike, I was shaking uncontrollably. My back was on fire, and I didn't even need to see it to know I was bleeding heavily. 15 was the usual number of lashes, so I had no idea why they were going so far. At the 29th stroke, my body gave out. I slumped forward, barely keeping upright. I had taken nearly double the normal punishment, and I couldn't understand why. The final lash cracked through the air, and a dull grunt escaped me as the leather strap fell from my mouth to the wooden floor. My wrists were unbound, and I collapsed instantly, blood dripping onto the stage beneath me. One thing you should know, wolves don't really care about nudity. When they shift, their clothes rip apart, and they're left naked when they return to human form. So having my torso exposed wasn't even unusual by their standards. I lay there, gasping, trying to shield my bare chest when I felt a boot pressing hard into my already torn up back. This is what happens when humans forget their place. Werewolves are the dominant species, and you will show respect. Is that clear? A few quiet yes responses murmured through the crowd before someone grabbed a handful of my hair and tossed me off the stage. My arms scraped the ground and fresh blood poured from the new wounds. No one dared move to help until all the wolves had left the stage. The fear of being next kept them frozen. Finally, I felt a warm coat draped over my back, and 2 men gently lifted me to my feet. Liora. I turned my head weakly toward the familiar voice. Zane Hollowell, my best friend. What the hell did you do? Still supported between the 2 men, I whispered. Rhett. He gave me a small nod, understanding without needing further explanation. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let me introduce myself. I'm Liora Vale, 17 years old. My hair is a deep brunette, almost black, and my eyes are pretty plain. Just brown. I'm about 5'6" and a high school student. Rhett is my 6-year-old little brother, and I'm constantly pulling him out of trouble, like today. Our dad was killed by them, the Lycans, 5 years ago when they first took over. When they broke through into our town, my dad joined a group of locals who tried to fight back. It was hopeless. I watched with my own eyes as two full-shifted wolves tore him apart. I had to shoot him myself, just to end his suffering. That same day, they dragged me to the courtyard and gave me the first public lashing this town had ever seen. I was 12. They've kept a closed eye on me ever since. Anyway, back to what happened. Is Rhett okay? I asked Zane with a nod, my head barely able to stay up before my knees buckled. The men rushed me to Nora, the human nurse for our district. She cleared her exam table in an instant, and I was laid face down onto it. She gently removed the coat from my back, then gasped and dashed round to gather supplies. The numbing pain started to turn sharp again, and I let out a few ragged moans as my body trembled from the shock. I'm giving you something for the pain, she said. I felt the sting of a needle in my shoulder blade, and then, just like that, everything went numb, and the world faded to black. Chapter 2 Lyora. 1. I slowly opened my eyes. The dull ache in my neck reminded me I'd spent the night lying face down on a hard wooden table. My back throbbed with pain, and I winced as I sat up, glancing down at my torso. I saw a thick bandage wrapped snugly around my chest, covering everything, including my exposed breasts. At least I wasn't still naked. The early morning sun was just starting to rise, casting a soft orange glow through the window. I took a deep breath and carefully stood up, only to nearly collapse as my legs struggled to carry me. I spotted a small glass of water placed nearby. I grabbed it and drank every last drop like I'd been stranded in a desert. Remembering I had school, I limped over to grab a piece of paper and scribbled a quick note for Nora, thanking her for taking care of me and letting her know where I'd gone. The walk back home was slow and painful. By the time I reached my house and made it to my room, I was already exhausted. I went straight for my uniform. After the Lycans gained control, they enforced strict rules for humans, uniforms included. We had to wear plain gray long-sleeved button-ups with high collars and matching gray pants, black flats on our feet. Wolves, of course, could wear whatever they wanted. Individual expression was reserved for the superior species. One of the girls at school once asked to wear a skirt instead. They chained her in iron and paraded her half naked through the streets, with just that skirt wrapped around her waist. That's how far they'll go to humiliate us. The lycanthropes are a cruel and degrading breed. Once I got dressed, I headed out. What was normally a 20-minute walk to school took nearly 30 because of the burning pain in my back. By the time I reached the entrance for humans, I knew I was late. Name and year. The Lycan standing watch barked, his cold eyes locking onto mine. I had to lower my gaze out of habit. Submission was non-negotiable. Liora, senior year. He tapped away at his tablet, then without warning grabbed my arm and yanked me closer. I winced as he jabbed a needle into my skin, injecting the clear serum that neutralized any trace of wolfsbane. They did it daily, just in case. Get to class. 1 more late marks, and you'll be doing gym. My eyes widened. Humans weren't allowed to take gym. It was meant for wolves only. If I joined, I'd basically be a punching bag. Got it, I muttered, sarcasm dripping from my voice. Before I could stop myself, I realized my mistake instantly. Get moving, trash, before I drag you by the hair, he growled. I didn't argue. I nodded and hurried off toward the human wing of the school. I was lucky only one wolf crossed my path. I kept my head down and moved quickly. When I reached the classroom door, I knocked and waited for the teacher's cue. As soon as I stepped inside, all eyes turned towards me. Liora, why are you even here? One of the girls asked, her voice laced with surprise. I offered a tired smile and turned towards Mr. Harlow. Sorry, I'm late. He shook his head, but didn't scold me. Take a seat. Just as he turned back to the board, he paused and glanced at me again. You don't need to apologize. I nodded, appreciating the gesture. What happened yesterday? Liora, I sighed. I knew this was coming. My little brother, Rhett, accidentally disrespected the alpha. It was either him or me. I shrugged, turning my gaze away from him. Where was your mom? Kayla's voice cut in from near the front of the class. She sat on the left, where all the mated humans were assigned, with that stupid mark on her neck in plain view. None of your damn business. Wolf lover, I snapped, my anger flaring. Liora, Mr. Harlow looked shocked. Don't make me write you up. I clenched my jaw. There was only one thing I hated more than Lycans. Humans who mated with them. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. That was harsh, especially since Kayla used to be my friend. But that changed a few months ago. Me, her, and Zane were walking through the hallway when the beta from our district's pack suddenly grabbed. Heard he said one word, just one, and that was it. Within 48 hours, she had his nasty mark on her neck. Now she sat with the other mated humans. One's already pregnant. Another guy's about to be a dad. They all sat on the left side of the room. It's just like some twisted throwback to the early 1900s. The hierarchy's clear. Lycans on top, mated humans in the middle, and the rest of us at the bottom. We're the dirt under their feet. The mated ones get special privileges, as long as they wear their marks. They're allowed to dress however they want and eat with the wolves. They're practically one of them, except in class. Liora, we didn't choose this. They're our mates, Kayla insisted, her voice cracking. Bullshit. I spat. A wolf can't mark a mate without consent. It'll kill you. So don't give me that crap. You said yes. So shut up and enjoy stabbing your own kind in the back. Yeah, I pick on the mated humans. I can't help it. They disgust me. Say what you want. I won't change my opinion. I hope you get a mate, she whispered, tears in her eyes. Then you'll understand how impossible it is to resist the pull. I stared her down, my glare burning into her. She looked away, tears slipping down her face. If one of those things ever says that word to me, my voice dropped into a growl. I'll kill myself. Gasps echoed through the room. But I wasn't joking. I'd rather die than be bonded to one of them. Liora, don't even joke about that, Mr. Harlow said, horrified. I gave a casual shrug. He knew I wasn't bluffing. After a long, uncomfortable pause, he addressed the whole class. No one here is going to hurt themselves. Now let's get back to the lesson. Honestly, I didn't care what he said. I wasn't made for this world. Everyone knew it. One more word out of you, and I'll send you to the principal. After yesterday, I expected better from you. That pushed me over the edge. They threatened a 6-year-old. I snapped, slamming my hands on the desk as I stood. They stripped me down and beat me in front of the whole town for protecting my brother. What's the point of following their rules if they punish us anyway? Screw them. Zane stood up beside me, and soon half the class followed. The mated humans stayed seated, looking scared. All right, all of you, sit down, Mr. Harlow said sharply. I'm on your side, but this isn't the way to start a rebellion. I hate the Lycans too, but I won't support turning on our own. I rolled my eyes but sat, glancing around as the others followed. Don't call them our kind, I muttered, eyes flicking to Kayla, who was now crying openly. The pregnant girl rubbed her belly protectively. Troy, the mated guy, kept his eyes on the door. Before anyone said more, the intercom crackled, and the principal's voice boomed through the room. Humans, he began, making me scowl instantly. As many of you know, the Alpha Twins will celebrate their birthdays tomorrow. Festivities are scheduled. Just great. Theron and Thalia, the Alpha's twin kids, were the worst of them all. They got away with everything. All students will be lined up to greet them. Humans on the left, Lycans on the right. Mated humans will stand at the front of each line, organized by year. That is all. As soon as the speakers clicked off, the classroom exploded in chatter. We haven't had a gathering since the Alpha King visited 3 years ago, Zane said. He was right. The last time we had an assembly like this was when the king announced he was stepping down. and passing the crown to his son, Griff. That sick bastard wants a full crowd so his kids can find their mates, I muttered, slamming my fists on the desk again. They're turning 17. It's the perfect chance for them to sniff out their distant ones. The second they say the word, it's over. You're theirs. They twist your mind until you're one of them. But not me. I refuse to be claimed. I'll grow old, free, and choose the love on my own terms. No one will ever take the dream away from me. Chapter 3, Lyora, Mom. I'm home. I called out as soon as I stepped through the front door. Within seconds, she came rushing down the stairs of our small house, wrapping me in a tight embrace, tears already spilling down her cheeks. Liora, I'm so sorry about yesterday. I stayed with you for hours, but you weren't waking up. I had to get home to Red. She sobbed on my shoulder while I stood there stiffly. I've never been one for hugs. They always make me feel awkward. And to be honest, my mom tends to be a bit dramatic. Mom, I'm okay, I muttered. Eventually, she loosened her grip and wiped her eyes. Your dad would be so proud of the strong woman you're becoming. I gave her a soft smile before turning to head upstairs. Liora, I made your favorite, she added, and I could already smell the familiar scent drifting from the kitchen. Beef broth. It was rare that we had the ingredients for it, which meant she must have gone out of her way to get them. I smiled, knowing she probably had to trade something valuable. Thanks, Mom. Our relationship is complicated. We don't talk much, but the love is there. She doesn't get why I always push back, and I don't get why she always submits. We've never really clicked the way a mother and daughter are supposed to. She always wanted a sweet, girly little girl, and instead, she got me, the biggest tomboy on the block. She's not a fighter, not even close, but she tries in her own way. She does what she can for me and Red, even if that means leaning on me a little too much. Sometimes I feel like she thinks of me as the man of the house. Leo, I barely had time to brace myself before Rhett launched himself off the 6th step, landing right into my arms. Oof. I caught him, but the pressure on my back made me wince. Careful, bud. I'm still pretty sore. I groaned as he laughed. Oops. Sorry. He giggled. I leaned over and blew a raspberry on his cheek, making him burst into laughter before I set him down. He grabbed my hand and tugged me towards the dining table. Liora, you're back. My mom stood frozen in the kitchen doorway, holding two bowls of broth, her eyes fixed on me. I reached behind me and touched the back of my shirt where the bandages were it was damp. I pulled my hand back and saw a faint smear of red. Damn it, I'll need to see the nurse again after we eat, I muttered. Some of those lashes must have reopened. Again. Let me help, she quickly offered, setting the bowls down in front of Rhett and me. I'll clean you up and rewrap it after dinner. I shook my head but smiled. It's all right. You'll be too gentle, and it needs to be tight. But thanks. She sighed and went to grab her own bowl, returning to sit with us. I've patched you up plenty of times when you were little. You know, she said, a little offended. I rolled my eyes but caved. Fine, that'll save me a trip to Nora's anyway. Once we finished eating, I was ready to crash. I'd had a long, brutal day. It's down Nana's Malafak worked on his simple school assignment at the table nearby. My mom came in carrying a warm bowl of salt water and some cotton. Just the sight of it made me brace myself. This was gonna hurt. She started unwrapping the bandages slowly, but when she reached the last layer, she slowed even more. I felt it peeling away from each wound like it was ripping my skin off. I clenched my fists, trying not to scream. Jesus, she gasped once it was all off. I sighed at the cool air on my raw back and covered my bare chest with one arm out of habit. This is way more than 15 lashes, she whispered, and I could hear her sniffling again. I turned to look at her and saw tears running down her face. Mom, I'm fine, really. No, you're not. I'm your mother. I should have protected you. I'm so sorry. Your father would have there it was. Every time something happened, she brought up Dad. And every time, it pissed me off. Because as much as I missed him, he wasn't here. And wishing wouldn't bring him back. Stop it. I snapped. Harsh. Yeah. Necessary. Also, yeah. Dad's gone. He didn't live in this world. We don't know what he'd do. He never had to survive this shit. I knew what he would have done. Probably attacked the Lycan with the whip and gotten himself killed. The best thing you can do for me now is stop crying and help me. Don't offer if you can't handle it. She nodded quietly and began cleaning the open wounds. The salt water burned like hell, and I couldn't hold back the winces and groans that escaped my lips. Some of these are deep. Liora. She sniffed again. I told you, I'm fine. Just wrap it tight so I can sleep. She was clearly more upset than I was. That's how it always goes, though. When something happens to you, you just endure it. But when it's someone you love, it breaks you. She finally finished and wrapped my torso tightly with fresh bandages. The water in the bowl had turned a deep red from all the blood. Please, just keep your head down this week. You can't afford another lashing. I nodded silently and stood up. I walked over, ruffled Rhett's hair affectionately, and smiled. Night, Squirt. Night, Leo. He grinned and tried to fix his messy hair. I headed upstairs to my tiny bedroom. As soon as I got inside, I shut the door and flopped face down onto the bed. The pain in my back was unbearable, and I finally let myself cry into my pillow. Quietly, I covered my mouth with my hands so no one would hear me. I couldn't let them know. Not my mom. Not Red. Not anyone. I had to be strong. People were falling apart more and more these days, and if I broke too, Mom wouldn't survive it. Eventually, sleep pulled me under. She was right, though I had to lay low for a while. One more punishment like that, and I might not get back up. Chapter for Liora of After what felt like the longest night of my life, and an even longer morning. We were finally lined up in the school hallway, waiting for the twins to arrive. Mine. The hallway fell into a heavy silence. The words hit like a gunshot. Every senior went rigid where they stood. Zane and I were positioned near the very back of the human line, while all the mated students stood directly across from their wolf counterparts. It was a twisted, controlled parade. We stayed absolutely still as Thalia strutted down the corridor, her eyes locked on Zane. She came to a stop right in front of him. His eyes widened, torn between fear and confusion, unsure whether he should lift his gaze or keep it fixed on the ground. Look at me, mate. Her voice was smooth, commanding. Zane glanced at me, silently begging for guidance. I said, looking me in the eyes, slowly, hesitantly, he did. I followed his gaze for a split second and saw her pupils pitch black with desire. I can't. Zane stammered, but he didn't get the chance to finish. Two wolves stepped forward from the opposite side of the hall, grabbed him by both arms, and yanked him from the line, dragging him behind Thalia without hesitation. Hey, the word flew out of my mouth before I could stop it. I took a step forward, completely forgetting where I was, and worse, forgetting the rules. My mouth ran on instinct, not logic. Every head turned towards me as I realized what I'd just done. Theron, Thalia's twin, was on me in seconds. He didn't say a word, just drove his fist straight into my stomach. I doubled forward, gasping as the pain radiated through my barely healed back. I know who you are, he said coldly. You were publicly whipped 2 days ago. God, I hated him. I also heard you had plenty to say about our laws during class yesterday. My eyes flicked down the line and landed on Kayla. She looked nervous. Her mate, soon to be Beta, was beside her, silently nodding for her to stay calm. You damn traitor! I barked at her. You snitched on your own kind. Before I could say anything else, a fist crashed into my cheek. My head snapped to the side, stunned gasps echoing down the hallway. That was it. I'd had enough. In that moment, I wasn't thinking. I was reacting. I squared my stance, fists clenched, ready to fight back. My gaze locked with thoroughness. You don't even know what disrespect means. I launched my fist at his face. He dodged it easily, but he didn't expect the kick that followed. My foot connected with his chest, knocking him back a step. You actually hit me, he said, stunned. He wasn't even angry, just surprised. The whole hallway had frozen, everyone waiting for his response. But instead of retaliating, he straightened himself and dusted off his shirt. Everyone, get to class, he said calmly, turning to follow his sister. What about Zane? I shouted after him. Simple, he's my sister's mate now. He belongs to her. Like hell he did. He's not her damn property. I snapped. He laughed quietly over his shoulder. All humans are property. Later, during science class, the tension in the room still hadn't lifted. Mrs. Violet, our teacher, was one of the first women to be manipulated into a relationship with a Lycan. He was now the packing doctor, and they had 2 kids together, one for and another 2. What were you thinking, young lady? She scolded. I didn't bother answering right away. My eyes drifted to the empty seat beside me, Zane's seat. He was with that wolf girl now, getting processed, or whatever they called it. The thoughts made my blood boil. I was thinking that guy's a jackass. I finally said, did you hear him? All humans are property? What a load of crap. The room went silent. Everyone stared at me like I'd lost it. Insulting wolves was already risky, but talking back about an alpha, that was a death sentence. Physically attacking one, even worse. A knock interrupted the tension. Kayla walked in, followed by her little group of mated followers. Sorry, relate, Mrs. Violet, she said sweetly. Kayla, how are things going with Beta Marty? The teacher asked. She blushed. He mentioned wanting to try for a baby. He says we need a strong boy to carry on the Beta line. I scoffed. Seriously, what if it's a girl? What? She's not good enough. You people are living like it's the damn Stone Age. A couple students gasped. Calling Lycans mutts was the human equivalent of being called scum. After class, we were all summoned to the gym for an assembly. Everyone knew what that meant. Disciplinary action, public and brutal. Welcome to the school assembly. First, congratulations to the Alpha twins on finding their mates. The principal began. Now, moving on. Next week marks the 5-year anniversary of the new order. In celebration, we've been informed the Alpha King himself will visit our district. The room buzzed. No one had seen the Alpha King in person since he inherited the title at 18. He was elusive, intimidating, and terrifying. She-wolves and mated human females will wear custom-designed gowns. Male wolves and mated males will be in tailored suits. Anyone who fails to comply will be punished. Great! This whole month was about to be a damn nightmare. No one has met the Alpha King yet. He took over the throne 3 years ago when he turned 18. Humans will receive new uniforms for the event. These must be ironed and worn to perfection. Now, based on recent behavior, the following humans will step forward for punishment. Tony Somerset, Tony the Jr., stood up slowly. He shared my views, and clearly, that had put a target on his back. His shirt was ripped off, and he took 10 lashes without flinching. Kara was next. Same fate. Then I heard it. My name, Liora Vale. I swallowed hard. My stomach dropped, but I didn't flinch. I figured this was coming. I just wasn't sure if my back could take any more. You attacked an alpha, correct? I bowed my head. Technically, no. The gym went still. I glanced towards the wolf's side. Theron was seated next to a younger she-wolf. Jana, I think, must be his mate. Zane and Thalia were nowhere to be seen. Theron gave me a smirk and a shrug, almost like he was saying, I didn't tell, that bastard. He hasn't officially taken the alpha title yet. I continued. So really, that was all it took. The principal's eyes went black. His claws extended. He was in a half shift, his fury barely restrained. He nodded at the 2 security wolves. In seconds, I was forced onto my knees. One wolf slammed my arm onto a table. The other pinned me down. "I don't think this is necessary," Theron said, standing abruptly. "I'm alpha-blooded. A human girl can't actually hurt me." "Regardless," the principal growled, "humans need to be reminded of their place." He yanked up my sleeve and dragged a claw into my flesh. The pain was unbearable, hot, sharp, deep. I bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted blood. Refusing to scream, he kept going, carving into my arm like it was parchment. My vision blurred. I turned my head, trying to mentally escape it. At last, he stopped. The wolves released me, but before I could move, the principal seized me again, lifting me off the floor by my injured arm. Blood streamed down, and the carved words were on full display. The room gasped, some wolves included. "This is what happens when a human dares to rebel. Speak out, and you'll suffer the same fate." My arms throbbed. My fingers tingled from the strain. Still, I kept silent. I beat down harder on my cheeks, holding the tears back, blood pooling in my mouth. "That's enough, Bradley," Theron snarled, stepping forward. The principal flinched at his tone and dropped me. I hit the ground with a soft cry, the pain jolting through me. I scrambled away, nearly falling down the stage steps, until two arms caught me. My breath caught as I looked up. Theron had caught me, again. "This isn't part of the human punishment protocol," he growled, holding me tightly. I shoved him off, adjusted my uniform, and stood tall. The room was deathly quiet, every single person processing what they just witnessed. I glanced at my arm. The words carved into my skin were permanent. "Human scum." "Lessons must be learned," the principal muttered. "She was whipped 2 days ago. Clearly it didn't work." Theron stepped onto the stage, eyes hard. But me, I wasn't ashamed. I even smiled a little. I tugged my sleeve just enough so it wouldn't rub against the wound, then spoke. "It doesn't matter," I said, loud and clear. "I'd rather be brandy human scum than be anything like you." "I know who I am. How many of you can say the same?" Gasps echoed. Without another word, I walked straight down the aisle, right between the humans and the wolves, and pushed through. The doors. No more playing by their rules. From now on, I do everything I could to challenge them without getting crushed. The day will come when their power fades, and when that moment arrives, I'll be ready, and no one will stop me. Chapter 5. Liora Pa Vow. Not so rough. I hissed as the school nurse dabbed antiseptic on the fresh wound carved into my arm. "If you just kept your mouth shut, this wouldn't have happened." Her tone was firm, but not cold. I turned my head toward the window, watching the lazy clouds drift across a blue afternoon sky. Like I said, I'm proud to be human. I clenched my fists as she started wrapping a thick bandage around my forearm. Now everyone knows exactly what I am. It had been a few hours since what went down in the gym. I tried rinsing the wounds with water from the tap, but it wouldn't stop bleeding. Eventually, I was dragged into the nurse's office. "Again, you're impossible. You know that?" She muttered. "Could you please, just this once, stay out of trouble? Just one day. That's all I ask." Our school nurse was a wolf, not one of them, but she wasn't like the others. She didn't believe in the way they treated us humans. She wanted peace, equal rights, the whole utopia fantasy. But we both knew that was never going to happen. "I've done nothing but try to avoid trouble," I said, rolling my eyes. "But it doesn't matter. They'll humiliate me anyway, no matter what I do." The packing council discussed a public execution. Liora, her voice dropped. "You're pushing their limits. You need to start walking on eggshells, not just for your own sake, but for your families." Public execution. No one had been executed in 4 months. I guess I should be honored they were considering adding me to the list. They only go after people they see as real threats. "Well, damn, I'm flattered," I said with a dry laugh. I looked down at my arm. Not bad work. Neat. Tight bandage. Actually, a not too shabby. I stood from the stiff cot in the human wing of the nurse's office, and pulled my sleeve down, hiding the evidence of what had just happened to me. I'm serious, Liora. I gave her a flat look and headed for the door. Just think about it, she called after me. I gave her a short nod and walked away, already dreading how I was going to explain this to my mom. Later that evening, Leo, why'd you say that? Rhett asked, looking up at me with his cheeks puffed out and full of bread. Don't talk with your mouth full. Mom snapped, giving him the look. So ooey, mommy, he mumbled, swallowing quickly. I said it because it's the truth, I replied, not bothering to sugarcoat it. The wolf race is a pathetic excuse for A. Liora, mom's voice cut like a whip. They have ears everywhere. One more word like that and you're grounded. I clenched my jaw, the rage in me bubbling hotter with each passing day. What more can they do to me? Huh? Whip me, beat me, brand me. They've already checked every damn box. I slammed my hands on the table, instantly regretting it as a jolt of pain shot through my arm. What was that? Mom's eyes narrowed, concerned replacing irritation. Nothing, I said quickly. Just a bump. I grabbed my plate and headed toward the kitchen. I'm not really hungry. Doc got homework. But before I could walk away, Mom reached out and grabbed my forearm. The plate slipped from my hand and crashed to the floor, shattering into jagged pieces. Red, stay put, I said immediately. He froze in place, eyes wide. Mom turned my arm over, her fingers adjusting their grip until she pushed my sleeve up. The bandage was visible and bleeding. What the hell happened? She asked, voice trembling as she tried to undo the wrap. I yanked my arm back. It's nothing, just a school accident. No big deal. She didn't buy it. I knelt to start picking up the broken pieces of the plate. Liora, what did you do? She asked again, eyes full of fear. And for the first time, I saw it, the way the wounded must look to someone who didn't know. For God's sake, I didn't do it to myself. I snapped. I was punished at the assembly, okay? It's not a big deal. Her expression collapsed. She stepped closer to me, and I instinctively backed away. Mom, I'm fine. Will you just back off? No, you're not. I've never heard of them cutting someone as punishment. What happened? I sighed hard. I spoke out against the alpha son. I might have hit him too, but she didn't need to know that part. It's not just a cut, I added. It's a brand. They carved the words human scum into my arm. Her whole body stiffened. They branded you. I rolled my eyes, brushing past her to grab the broom and dustpan. You're just like your father, she muttered, running a hand through her hair. That one hit different. I left a new uniform on your bed, she added, her voice softer now. Please, Liora, just try to keep your head down. I don't want to see my daughter completely mutilated, and you're not far off. Gee, thanks, I muttered. I bent down and blew a kiss into Rhett's neck, making him giggle. So, sport, how's school going? It's okay, he shrugged, already back to coloring a dinosaur. Good, keep it that way. All right, no trouble. I headed upstairs to my room, my mind spiraling back to the hideous wound on my arm, a scar that would never fade. They marked me like property, like I didn't belong in my own skin. The second I opened my bedroom door, I stopped in my tracks. Laid neatly across my bed were the new uniform pieces. The gray slacks weren't surprising, but the shirt, that was something else entirely. A high neck, sleeveless button down, sleeveless. Every other human's uniform had sleeves. All of them. There was no way this was an accident. They wanted people to see the brand. They wanted everyone to look at me and see the shame. They wanted the world to know that I, Liora Vale, had been officially labeled human scum. Chapter 6 Liar app of past week. It was a nightmare. In class, I spoke out constantly, loud and unapologetic. I insulted just about everyone, teachers, students, even the mated ones. I didn't care about the consequences, and honestly, I didn't even think about them. I hadn't seen Zane once since he was claimed by Thalia, and to make things worse, today was the day of the royal visit. Oh yeah, the werewolves and their mated humans had been losing their minds all week, prepping every second to impress His Royal Highness, the so-called King of the Wolves. The rest of us, the unclaimed humans, we'd rather gouge our own eyes out with forks. Liora, get down here now. You're going to be late. My mom called from downstairs. She was right. I'd been dragging my feet all morning. I just couldn't bring myself to care. I gave myself one last look in my tiny mirror and sighed when my eyes landed on the brand. The skin around the carved letters was still bruised and sore to the touch, but it had started healing. I made my way downstairs and found my mom helping Rhett into his jacket. She turned to me as I reached the bottom step. "You ready, sport?" I asked him with a smile. He nodded, his little face beaming as he grabbed my hand. "Liora, remember what I said?" Mom warned, stopping us at the door. "The alpha's bad enough. Just, please, don't do anything to upset the king." She'd been repeating that same line for days. It was like the entire human population expected me to do something reckless. And sure, they had every reason to think that. "Try and have a good day," she added, her voice softer. I rolled my eyes but nodded. Even I knew better than to mess with the king. He could kill me in front of the whole school, and no one would dare stop him. My plan was simple: stay out of his way. Completely. "We'll see you tonight, Mom," I said, squeezing Red's hand as we left the house. Zane used to walk with us. He lived next door, but not anymore. Now he lived in the main pack house with her. I dropped Red off at his school and watched him get his daily wolfsbane neutralizer injection before he waved goodbye and headed inside. Then I made my way to the high school. With my new scar on full display and my body tightly wrapped in that sleeveless, form-fitting shirt they so graciously assigned me, I strolled down the sidewalk like nothing was wrong. At the gate, I gave my name and year, took the neutralizer injection without flinching, and walked inside. That's when the real problem started. The hallways were full of stares, some pitying, others disgusted. Every other unmated human wore the standard long-sleeved version of the uniform. Just me? Sleeveless. Wolves and mated humans wandered the halls in elegant suits and gowns, flaunting their superiority as if we weren't even there. Then I turned the corner and saw them, Thalia and Zane, practically glued to each other, making out like there was no one else in the world. I'd never wanted to vomit more. What the fuck? Zane's head snapped towards me, eyes wide. He was dressed in a tailored navy suit, a matching tie to complement Thalia's dress. Of course. Why was it always my friends? Why did they all get sucked in? I shook my head in disbelief and turned away, walking faster. I heard footsteps behind me. Liora. He ran ahead and blocked my path, forcing me to stop so fast I nearly dropped my bag. "Let me explain. She marked you." I snapped, my voice sharp. I could see it in his eyes. She had. And knowing how this crap works, I wouldn't be surprised if they'd already mated. Actually, don't even answer that. I yanked my bag from the floor and stormed past him. "Liora, wait. Just listen. Kayla was right. It's so hard to resist your soulmate. And Thalia, she's not as bad as you think." I kept walking, ignoring everything around me. I wasn't in the mood. Getting into class was a relief. I greeted Mr. Harlow and dropped into my usual seat. Zane followed closely behind, already pulling off his bag to sit next to me. But I wasn't having it. "Traitors and mated idiots sit on that side of the room," I said coldly, pointing to the front row on the opposite end. He froze, staring at me. "You're not serious." I didn't even look up. I opened my book, wrote the date at the top of the page, and ignored him completely. "I've sat next to you for as long as I can remember," he said, voice quiet, like he couldn't believe what was happening. "Liora, wait. What is that?" Before I could react, he grabbed my arm and yanked up the sleeve. His eyes went wide as he read the carved letters. Oh my God, what the fuck happened? I snatched my arm back and kept writing. "The principal did that," I said flatly. "It was my punishment for speaking out against Theron and Thalia. I wear it with pride. He looked stunned. You spoke out against them? I shrugged, still refusing to meet his eyes. I've made it pretty clear how much I hate this pathetic new world and the mutts who run it. You were my friend, Zane. I wasn't about to let them take you without saying something. But you just gave right in. So enjoy your new seat. Don't do this, he said, voice breaking just slightly. I'm still your best friend. I'm sorry about your arm, but I cut him off with a bitter chuckle. Any apology that includes the word but isn't an apology. It's an excuse. I grabbed my water bottle and took a long sip, eyes locked forward. Liora, please. He kept trying, but I didn't respond. Finally, he sighed. Kayla was right. If you keep pushing people away, someday you won't have anyone left. He muttered something under his breath and walked to the front of the room, settling into an empty seat. I could feel his eyes on me, but I didn't acknowledge him. Good morning, class. Please settle down. Mr. Harlow walked in and glanced between me and Zane. He frowned. We'd always sat together. Always. I just shook my head slightly, letting him know not to ask. So, as you all know, the king will be arriving shortly. But until then, lessons will proceed as normal, he said. It was honestly weird seeing teachers in the same uniforms as us. Mr. Harlow and his wife were different though, cooler than most. As human educators, they were given slightly more respect. They had better access to food and supplies. Mrs. Harlow even packed extras sometimes and had Mr. Harlow sneak them to me. They were friends of the family before all this madness. Mr. Harlow and my dad had gone to high school together. So yeah, I was kind of like their honorary kid. All mated humans will be at the front of their years line. Everyone else will be placed by status. Zane, since you're mated to Alpha Thalia, you'll lead your years. He hesitated before continuing. Liora, due to your recent branding. Yeah, I interrupted. I'll be at the very back. Got it. I slouched further in my seat and looked out the window. I am sorry, he said gently. I turned to him. His face was sincere, full of guilt and pity to things I didn't want. I gave him a small nod and turned back away. Anyway, he continued, today we're going over of mice and men, page 64. Zane, why don't you start the reading? Of course, sir, Zane replied. He began reading, but I tuned out. My mind wandered. This was going to be a long day. By the time the bell rang for lunch, I was already halfway out of my seat. I bolted from the classroom before anyone could say a word. Today, I wasn't looking for a fight. I was just trying to survive. Chapter 7 Lyora wandered the corridors straight into the lunch hall. Most of the people I usually hung out with had already been claimed. So I grabbed my lunch quickly and sat at the far end of the human table. Let me paint a picture of the lunchroom for you. One side of the room had long rows of hard benches, gray, stiff, and prison-like. The other side, round tables with cushioned chairs, linen napkins, and decorative centerpieces. You get the idea. Humans sat at the prison tables. Wolves and their mated humans sat at the elegant ones. They got real food, real drinks, and dessert. God, what I'd give for pudding. Liora, can we please talk? Zane dropped into the seat next to me, setting his tray down. I glanced at his plate. It wasn't even a tray, really. It was a perfect white ceramic dish, complete with silverware and sparkling water. I sighed, knowing he was going to talk, whether I liked it or not. Fine, you've got 2 minutes. I reached my fork over and stole a bite of his pasta. My eyes closed for a second. Damn, it was good. After I left school, he began, I was taken to the pack house with Thalia. I actually got to know her. It took a few days, but I eventually accepted the bond. Since then, life's been, well, it's been okay. And the sex, that's a whole other story. You, I groaned, cutting him off. I didn't need that mental image burned into my brain. I'm glad you're happy, I added with a sigh, pushing my own tray away. Suddenly, I wasn't hungry anymore. His brows lifted, shocked at first. Then he exhaled in relief. That really means a lot. Liora, you know how much your opinion matters to me. I stopped him with a wave of my hand. I said, I'm glad you're happy. I didn't say I'm okay with what you did. You've turned into one of them. Zane, I can't forgive you for that. His face fell. The hurt in his eyes obvious. But I didn't care. He reached out and gently placed a hand on my arm, probably about to say something else when a low growl rumbled through the hall. Instantly, every head turned toward the source. Thalia stood near the drinking station, holding a glass of soda and a plate of food. She was glaring at me like she wanted to rip my throat out. If looks could kill, I'd be 6 feet under. Zane pulled his hand back fast, his whole demeanor shifting. You could see the guilt sinking into his face. You sit with me now, Thalia snapped. Get away from that. That scum. Wow, Zane really hit the jackpot, didn't he? You heard her. I looked Zane dead in the eye. Go sit with your real friends. I'm happy for you. And I get it. But don't come over here pretending you didn't betray your own kind. Don't act like you didn't betray me. I shoved a bit of food into my mouth. I stood up and walked out of the cafeteria, leaving my tray behind. I was heading towards Mr. Harlow's classroom. I decided to spend the rest of lunch there when I heard muted voices up ahead around the hallway corner. Is it wise for her to be present when the king arrives? Maybe it's time she spent a few days in the dungeons. It might actually teach her some respect. That was the principal's voice. I stopped in my tracks. If she puts one toe out of line, another voice replied. Deep, authoritative. Definitely the district's alpha. I'll handle her myself. That girl's been a problem since day one. She's dangerous. If she so much as blinks the wrong way, I'll break her into submission. They were talking about me, and they mentioned the dungeon. That place hadn't been used in months. Normally, I might have eavesdropped longer, but something about hearing threats against my freedom said get the hell out now. I started backing up and slammed straight into someone. I fell backwards, landing hard on the floor with a small grunt. As I looked up to see who I'd crashed into, my breath caught in my throat. He was stunning, tall, broad-shouldered, with piercing eyes and a face sculpted like some cruel god's idea of perfection. My heart skipped, and not because he was attractive. No doubt it was the way his entire body froze when our eyes met. Mate, he whispered, staring straight at me. I went cold. I'd heard that word enough to know what it meant. No. I muttered under my breath, backing away quickly. He growled low in his throat and stepped towards me. I didn't give him the chance. I bolted. I sprinted down the hallway, heart hammering. His growls echoed behind me, bouncing off the walls, probably shaking the whole damn school. I didn't stop. I couldn't stop until I burst through the double doors of the lunch hall again. I was panting, my chest tight. Everyone turned to look at me, frozen mid-conversation. The room went dead silent, of course. One dramatic entrance and everyone knew it had something to do with me. Again. I ignored the stares and walked straight to the human tables, dropping into my old seat. My eyes stayed glued to the door, ready for that wolf to follow me. He never came through. The bell rang shortly after, signaling the end of lunch. Everyone began filing out. I stood quickly, blending into the crowd of humans, hoping it would help cover my scent. I made a beeline for Mrs. Violet's classroom, where our next lesson would be. Inside, everyone was frantically trying to fix their hair, straighten their clothes, and make themselves presentable. Apparently, words had spread. The king arrived during lunch. Mrs. Violet announced as she touched up her makeup with a compact mirror. In 5 minutes, you'll all be expected to be in formation. Heads down, clothes neat, and manners perfect. I was the only one not bothering. My legs were propped up on my desk, my head tilted back, hair tangled and wild. I couldn't care less about what anyone thought of me. Not today. Eventually, we were led into the corridor. Every student and staff member had been arranged in 2 lines. The wolves stood on one side, dressed like royalty. Humans, plain and uniformed, stood on the other. At the far end of the hall, Next to our principal stood a man wearing a crown, the king. Something about him felt familiar, but that couldn't be right. The king never made public appearances. He began walking down the rows, greeting students and staff. He paused to chat with the Alpha twins before continuing forward. Everything was fine, until Barbara, the girl next to me, sneezed loudly. The king's head snapped towards us so fast I thought he might have fractured something. His eyes locked on mine. They widened, his chest visibly rising and falling. I bowed immediately, as did Barbara. But it was too late. "Maid," he said, loud enough for the entire corridor to hear. My head jerked up. Oh, my God. It was him. The same wolf I'd bumped into outside the hallway earlier. The one who'd whispered that cursed word. The king of the wolves. And he had just claimed me as his mate. Oh, shit. Chapter 8. Liar Apathy took a small step backwards, and a low growl rumbled from deep within the king's chest. I took another step, and he froze in place, eyes fixated on me. His gaze traveled slowly down my body, pausing on my bare arms. His frown deepened when he noticed my uniform. Then he turned sharply to the principal and said something I couldn't catch, whatever it was. I didn't wait around to hear the rest. I just took use of his distraction to run. I spun on my heels and bolted. Another growl ripped through the hallway, louder this time. The kind that vibrated through the lockers and echoed in my chest. The only thing running through me now was pure, unfiltered fear. I sprinted toward the nearest window, fumbling clumsily with the lock before finally managing to shove it open. I had no idea where I'd go, or even if I'd survive the jump, but I was ready to take my chances. My foot had just left the floor when two of the king's guards snatched me by the ankle. My body slammed to the ground, my palms smacking the wood with a painful oof. They dragged me back down the hallway like a ragdoll, heels scraping along the floor, and tossed me like trash at the king's feet in front of the entire school. "Perhaps we could discuss this in my office. Your grass," the principal began. I cut him off with a sharp shake of my head and scrambled to my feet, scanning the room for a way out. "I'm not discussing anything. Let me go." Another growl echoed as one of the guards grabbed me by both upper arms, holding on tight as I thrashed. This was so far from ideal. I stomped hard on his feet, and with a grunt, his grip loosened. I didn't get far before a third wolf tackled me to the ground, pinning me down with way more force than necessary. "Get the fuck off me," I screamed, flailing as they manhandled me. The third guard lifted me like a sack of potatoes and tossed me over his shoulder. I kicked, I yelled, I cursed. "Can someone explain what the hell is going on here? Miss Vale is a student at my school." The principal's voice was sharp, but it was cut short by a growl from the guard carrying me. "Matters of the royal court are not your concern," the king snapped as he approached. I was still kicking and shouting at the top of my lungs. "They are when it involves one of my students," the principal replied. Damn, I had to admit. I didn't expect him to stand up for me. He's hated me since day one. And here he was, trying to defend me against the damn Wolf King. "She is no longer your student," the king stated flatly. The words stopped me cold. My entire body froze. My breath caught in my throat. No longer his student. What? I twisted and shoved with all my strength, forcing the wolf to drop me. I hit the floor hard with a thud that sent a jolt of pain through my side. "Shit. I'm sorry, Your Grace." She just crack. The sound of impact echoed through the hallway. The guard who'd been holding me collapsed beside me. The king had struck his own man. Gasps rippled through the students and staff. Every eye in the room was locked on me now, like I was about to be executed. Still on the floor, I sat up slowly, my heart pounding. "What do you mean, no longer a student? You can't just take me out of school. You don't have that kind of authority." I didn't know if I was more terrified or furious. Maybe both. But I knew one thing for sure. I'd rather die than end up mated. Especially to him, the king of the Lycans. No way in hell. We're the royal court. The second wolf said calmly, "I'd say we do have that kind of authority." He started walking towards me. Now, I suggest we go to the office and talk this through like civilized people. Or are you thinking about jumping out of another window? His tone was light, almost amused. What if I said yes? I asked, dead serious. He tried not to laugh, but the twitch in his lips betrayed him. Even his eyes flickered with humor. I'd say, nice try. Miss Vale.now. Are you going to walk? Or am I dragging you? Before I could answer, another growl shook the air. The Alpha King stormed towards me, and I tensed, still seated on the floor. I scooted back instinctively, but stopped short as my back hit a solid wall of muscle. Great! The third wolf was standing right behind me. I was trapped. The king crouched down in front of me, his eyes scanning every inch of my face. His frown deepened. Why did you run, mate? Gasps echoed throughout the hallway. Whispers broke out like wildfire. People were staring at me. Because I wasn't just the human girl who caused trouble. Now I was the human girl who had just been claimed by the Lycan King himself. And judging by the look in his eyes, I wasn't getting away this time. Chapter 9, I am not your mate. I snapped, glaring up at him. Gasps rippled through the crowd of students watching us, but the king didn't flinch. He just sighed, calmly, eerily, and before I could react, his hand came up and struck me across the face, hard. My head snapped to the side, pain blooming across my cheek as my hand instinctively flew up to cradle it. My eyes widened in shock as I stared at him, unable to believe what had just happened. He stood there like nothing had happened, completely unbothered, and held his hand out to me. Come, he said simply, but I just stared at it. There was no way in hell I was going to willingly go anywhere with him. His jaw tightened when I didn't move. With a frustrated growl, he grabbed me by my bare forearms and yanked me to my feet. I winced as his fingers dug into the bruised skin, and his expression darkened instantly. He turned my arm over, inspecting it. His eyes narrowed when he saw the healing words carved into my skin, human scum. The letters were rough and scabbed over now, surrounded by a ring of dark purple bruising that made the whole thing look even worse than when it first happened. His fingers traced the wound, and tiny jolts of electricity danced up my arm from where he touched me. But the pain overwhelmed everything else. Whoever did this, he said, voice low and dangerous, will pay with their lives, my queen. His eyes bored into mine, sharp and full of vicious promises. I couldn't hold his gaze. I looked away, scanning the hallway until my eyes landed on the principal. His face was pale, his expression laced with panic. He was silently begging me, pleading, not to say anything. I sighed. If I let the king handle this, he'd been doing exactly what I've wanted to do since the minute that bastard branded me. And we definitely can't have that. Yeah, and what if I did it myself? I snapped, jerking my arm free from his grasp. I turned back toward the principal, raising a brow in smug satisfaction. His eyes widened, realization hitting him like a freight train. You did this to yourself? One of the king's men asked, stepping closer. His tone was genuinely confused. Great. Now the Royal Peanut Gallery was closing in. Maybe I did it so much like you would leave me alone. I barked. Gasps echoed again. Murmurs spread across the crowd like wildfire. The second wolf looked stunned for a moment, then smirked. The king, on the other hand, looked ready to explode. Well, the second wolf said, chuckling, you did always say you wanted a strong queen, your grace. The king shot him a deadly glare, but the tension in his shoulders eased slightly. It was weird to see someone talk him down like that. Not surprising, though. They'd been friends since childhood. Clearly that bond still held weight. Excuse me, your grace. Theron interjected. Perhaps we should return to the packing house. I'm sure my father would. I will not be returning to the packing house. The king interrupted sharply. I will be taking my queen home. The tour can resume in a few months. After our bond has been established, I snorted, loud and very unladylike. Theron bowed slightly and retreated to his place in line while the rest of the room turned to watch the unfolding disaster that was me and him. I didn't waste a second. "If you think I'm going anywhere with you," I said, "then you're even dumber than your father." And he already fucked up the entire world. The words were out before I could stop them. I froze out, my lips pressed together tightly as I bit down hard, trying to reel it back. But it was too late. My eyes lifted to meet the king's. And oh, yeah, I'd done it now. His expression was pure fury. Even I had to admit, I'd pushed it too far. So much for staying under the raid. So much for not engaging with the king. I just insulted the most powerful werewolf alive. And not just any werewolf. My so-called mate. For the first time in the 5 years since the new world began, I was completely, helplessly, in over my head. Chapter 10. Lyora. There I was, standing in front of the entire school population, the Royal Gamma, the Royal Beta, and finally, the Alpha King himself. The one who claimed I was his mate. Could have fooled me. "What did you just say?" His voice thundered through the hallway, fury practically dripping off him. I gasped as his claws extended and his teeth elongated right before my eyes. "Words." I said it so quietly. I didn't even think anyone would hear. For once, I was trying to be subtle, filtered, careful, but clearly, I wasn't quiet enough. Those who were close enough to hear gasped audibly. And before I could even process what was happening, the back of the king's hand swung up and hit me across the face again. Harder this time. Much harder. The force sent me crashing to the floor. My body slammed onto the tile. And blood filled my mouth instantly. I hung my head, letting the red liquid drip from my lips and splatter onto the floor beneath me. The entire school watched in stunned silence. No one moved. No one helped. They couldn't. "Don't test me, girl," he growled, his voice like a whip. "We may be mates, but I am still your king." There it was again. That word. Was I really destined to be bonded to the ruler of the lycanthrope? Was I truly meant to stand beside this monster and watch him abuse humans all across the world? Was this some twisted cosmic joke? What did I do to deserve this? I must have stayed quiet for too long, because the next thing I heard was his voice ringing out again, louder, sharper, full of finality. "I'm tired of this," he growled low in his throat, and before I could react, his hand clamped around my ankle. I gasped as he stood swiftly, dragging me with him. My body jerked forward, and the back of my head smacked against the floor from the sudden movement. The top I was wearing rode up lightly, exposing my thin, scarred torso. My back scraped brutally across the tiled floor, and pain erupted all over as blood continued to trickle from my mouth. I was pretty sure one of the lash wounds on my back had reopened. Again. It had been bleeding off and on ever since the whipping. I guess I hadn't exactly been resting like I was supposed to. He dragged me the entire length of the hallway, past the students, past the humans and wolves alike, all of them watching me get pulled like a broken doll, straight towards my doom. The Beta and Gamma followed behind us like bodyguards, with the principal trailing at the rear, his face pale. I kicked, I cursed, I tried to shake the king off with everything I had. It didn't matter. His grip was iron tight, and I could already feel bruises forming around my ankle. As I was dragged, I caught glimpses of the expressions around me. Some humans looked terrified for me. A few wolves looked jealous. Others wore pity on their faces, like it was a badge. Then, suddenly, he yanked me up onto my feet and shoved me hard through the principal's office door. It slammed shut behind us, the lock clicking into place. We were alone. He stalked towards me, and I backed up instinctively. His hands reached out and grabbed my cheeks, holding my head still as he leaned down toward my neck. My eyes widened in panic, and then my fist shot up and slammed into his jaw. He stumbled back, caught off guard, blinking in shock. "I know you ran because of the people in the hallway," he said, recovering quickly. "Let me mark you. And you won't be punished for your words or actions. You'll be seen as the Queen Luna the moment my mark is on you." Was he actually insane? Did he really think I was going to let him mark me? Never. Not in this life. Not in any other. I ran to get away from you. For God's sake. I spat. I backed all the way around the principal's desk, putting as much distance between us as I could. My hands wiped at the blood on my lips, smearing a red streak across my skin. I wasn't just bleeding. I was burning, with hatred, with fear, with rage.